We got to leave it at that. Thank you very
Sure.
much. Well, my next guest says time is running out for Iran and says it's clear the situation is moving towards military action. From Atlanta, George Birnbaum, former chief of staff to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and now a political consultant and CEO of GEB International. George, it's been a long time we haven't talked, but I'm glad to make contact with you again. Now that Netanyahu is back in power and is talking clearly to the President of the United States, what do you think the Israelis are telling the U.S. about Iran?
Well, this has been a race against time going on for about 10 years now. 10 years ago, Israeli intelligence estimates put it at about 7 to 10 years, at which point the Iranians would have the technology and the ability to have a nuclear bomb. So we're at the back end of that estimate right now. And if you hear the language of Mr. Netanyahu publicly in recent weeks, he's talking in terms of weeks and months, not years, for the international community to take harsh action. So I think we're really close to something happening. I'm sorry to say that I think both the United States and Europe are missing the point in terms of how to negotiate in the Middle East and from a cultural standpoint.
All right, and I know you want to focus on the issue of pride. We want to get into that, but you say that one of the worst things to do right now is not to make good use of what's happening on the streets of Iran, because those protesters, as repressed and beaten down as they are, could still have, these are not the protesters, by the way, these are the orchestrated crowds cheering on. They are the protests, that somehow we should do as much as we possibly can to encourage these people.
Oh, I think absolutely. I think you have to move on parallel tracks. I mean, we've always felt that the one thing Iran had going for it that places like Iraq and Syria didn't was access to information. That is the number of satellite dishes that exist in Iran and internet connections and cell phones. And so the people of Iran do have the ability to communicate to the outside world and among themselves. And so there's a real opportunity for change from within the country. But parallel to that, we have to be ready. That is, I think the Americans and the Israelis, because I really don't believe we'll be able to count on the Europeans, to take some kind of strong measures in the very near future.
But if these protests are still going on and Israel or the United States decide that a negotiation's over, it's time to strike Iran, that may completely shut off any hope for regime change, right?
Well, not only would it shut off hope for regime change, it would probably unify the people of Iran against the West once again, regardless of how they felt about their own regime.
Because the one thing they hate even more than their own regime is Israel and the Jews, and they would say this is a Jewish attack on our country, on our motherland.
Absolutely. On the other hand, neither Israel nor the United States nor the Western world, for that matter, can really take a chance on Iran having a bomb and hoping that some point after that there is a regime change.
So we have this sliver of time. We have to allow the protests to go on as long as possible, but we can't allow Iran to get the bomb in the meantime. So there is that moment in between the time that the protests either cause regime change or are shut down and the moment that the Iranians develop the use of the bomb.
Absolutely correct. And of course, there are all kinds of ramifications, including the Mideast peace process, which would completely fall apart if either Israel or the United States or both had to take that kind of action.
When is that sliver of time for action going to take place? Weeks, months? What do you think?
I don't have access to the most recent Israeli intelligence reports. But again, considering the depth of the intelligence from 10 years ago, I would think that sliver of time is rapidly approaching.
George Birnbaum, we got to have you back on because we want you to talk about what kind of negotiation is necessary, particularly playing on the issue of pride in Middle East negotiations. But we've run out of time for this session. We'll have you right back. George Birnbaum, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Happy to be back. Thank you.
And